Hello and welcome to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO 107.3 FM, AM 580, and always streaming live all over the world right there in the WDBO app. This is the Magic Mechanic Radio Show, joined by the one and only Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic himself. This is the show for you. You got a call, you got a question, you got a concern about your car, your truck, something going on, making some noises, making some funny smells, and you want to know exactly what's going on. Now is your time to call. 844-580-9326. That's 844-580-WDBO. Larry, how you doing today?
We're doing fine. Been working on some jet skis this morning, trying to get them all back in shape, or maybe get them out on the water here if the water keeps warming up a little bit. Let's put it that way. Hey,
I
folks.
didn't take you as a jet ski man, Larry.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing. Well, you get it's pretty personal with the water. You know what I'm saying? You know, you're there, and especially when you get into the really, really, really hot days. Nothing like it. A lot of fun. Now, we don't want to forget about the boat stuff either, but boats are for fishing. Jet skis are for going fast and having fun. Hey, folks, it's 3 o'clock. I'm Larry Perry, and you're tuned into the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. So you new listeners know, well, this is what we call an interactive automotive and mechanical advice program. And just like we just mentioned there, jet skis and boats, I take those questions as well. I have owned many, and I've worked on a lot of them. There's not a whole lot of difference between the newer stuff than an automobile, as far as the engine management and that sort of thing. So if you got, marine questions or anything like that, they're fair game as hell as well. So we're here to help you with your car problems and, well, just about anything mechanical. We work on just about everything. I have personally anyway. And it's been our pleasure to do so for almost 32 years. I think we got about 50 days between us and a 32-year birthday of doing the Magic Mechanic Show here on WDBO. Me personally, you say, what qualifies this guy to answer car questions on the radio anyway, Well, I am an automotive shop owner and have been for over 35 years. And I've been a master ASE auto technician since 1982. And I was working on vehicles prior to that, as you could well imagine. So I've got many, many years under my belt. To make the program work, we need your calls, and the lines are open. I see one is taken up here real quick, but we have a whole bunch of open lines. 844-580-9326. And this is where I try to tell folks to make it easy to remember. If you can remember the 844 part and the station that you're listening to, which is 580 WDBO, all you do is dial 844-580 and the WDBO, you just replace the letters with the numerals, just WDBO, and it's easy to remember that way. And remember, all your calls and your car questions are getting indexed, and they get placed on our new Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. And so other folks that are searching for answers like yours will be able to get the same needed information. Folks will be able to play your car questions back and hear my comments years from now. So we'll be around for a long time, even if we're not around. How's that? Dash warning lights, poor fuel economy, oil consumption, AC's not working. And, we got those ACs screaming right now. We got a lot of folks that are turning them on for the first time, or just starting to use them as a necessity, as they say. AC has changed a lot over the years, and if you don't know a few things about it, you can definitely be taken way advantage of when you take a car in to have the AC checked out. And it's not really the mechanic's fault. A lot of them doesn't know any better, folks. So if you got an AC issue and you want to run it by me, those questions are fair game as well. Maybe you got a warranty question. Maybe you got a recall notice in the mail. Maybe you're in the middle of an antique or a classic car restoration. You got some carburetor questions, or trying to figure out what to do with an old magneto or a set of points or something along those lines. And folks, we answer questions on just about anything. Yeah, gas, hybrid, electric, or diesel vehicles. Also remember, I have a complete database of all the listed recalls and technical service bulletins from, well, many years ago to current date. So maybe you've got a newer vehicle and you don't really know if there is a TSB, a technical service bulletin, or something along those lines pertaining to that vehicle. I've got all these TSBs and recall notices and stuff. So if there's something there particular that you'd like to investigate, all you got to do is give us a ring at 844-580-9326. Give our producer Josh the year, make, and model of your vehicle, a brief description of your problem, and you'll be placed on a brief hold, and we'll take your call in the order that it was received. Also remember, for immediate help, you can call the shop number and speak to my general manager, JD, at 407-629-2661. Also want to mention the open mic option. Josh touched on that a little bit earlier. You can go to WDBO.com on your smartphone and download the app if you don't already have it, and you can leave us an open mic car question. Just give us the year, the make, and the model, and the issue that you're having, and we'll get to those after the bottom of the 4 o'clock news break, usually at around 4:36 in the afternoon here. You can also ask a car question by emailing me, Larry@magicmechanic.com. Well, I can't guarantee how many we will get to during the show, if I can get to any of them. But if I can't, I will answer them first thing on Monday morning. So go ahead and get in line, 844-580-9326 or 844-580-WDBO. Go ahead and give us a ring. We'll get you lined up, and I guarantee we'll get to your car question. Can't wait to hear what your issues are today. And, folks, remember, we get a lot of guys that call in on the program, which is expected, all the testosterone, floating around on a car show. But we love listening to the ladies, too. And a lot of you avoid calling in because you may not think that you know how to describe something properly. And don't worry about that. You got to remember, I've had car problems explained to me by ladies for, way over 40 years now. So don't hesitate if you've got an automotive question or a problem, or if there's a vehicle that you're thinking about buying. Make sure you give me a call or email me at least, just to make sure that it's not something that is plagued with a lot of problems. And while we're talking about that, if you are looking at a used car and you're not mechanically inclined, by all means, make sure you take it into a shop and have a disinterested third-party inspection done. I don't care if it does say certified used. That means it's only as good as the worst mechanic at that dealership. So it's a good idea to always get a third disinterested party opinion on a used car before you purchase it, if you are not mechanically inclined and cannot, pretty much diagnose and check for things over yourself. So with that being said, who are we heading to first here, Josh?
To wrap up that note there, if you ever want to feel smarter about your knowledge about cars, go ahead and listen to me, Josh McCarthy, talk about cars, because I honestly have no idea what I'll be texting Larry all day. Hey, Larry, what's the car and carburetor mean? So there's no need to feel ever embarrassed about your question. That's what Larry's here for, and he'll break it down to you in the terms that you need, however you understand.
And you can't beat the price, Josh.
You can't.
You cannot beat the price, I promise you. The thing is, if you take a car into a shop, to have any type of diagnostic work done, they're going to write up a repair order. It's going to go through the shop, and whether you have anything repaired or not, there's probably going to be a charge of over $100. And you can pretty much tell me the same thing and get the same information for absolutely free. So, it's a pretty good deal from where I'm sitting. So if you got a car issued, by all means, give us a call. Even if you're a first-time caller, been listening for years, it doesn't make no difference to me. We'll sit there and try to walk you through whatever you've got going on. And if we're real lucky, maybe we'll even save you a little bit of money.
Growing up, I grew up in Jupiter, and my uncle is a mechanic there, and I always took for granted having a mechanic as an uncle, or an uncle as a mechanic, because you could always have somebody you can trust. And so then not everybody has that.
Well, I can be Grandpa Larry, I can be Uncle Larry, I can be Cousin Larry, whatever fits, you know.
You're Central Florida's Uncle Larry, the Magic Mechanic. So if you got any questions, just go ahead and call up Uncle Larry. So let's head on over to Davenport, where Stan's got a question about his '02 Honda Accord. Go ahead, Stan.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, Stan.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
My speed control, my cruise control doesn't work, and I've been babying the brake light switch down there, this and that. And finally, I brought it to the mechanic. They put a new one in. They put a grommet in. They said still doesn't work. What do I do now?
Okay. Well, Stan, there's a lot more to it than just a brake light switch. Now, granted, if the brake lights are staying engaged, the cruise control was not going to work. And those brake light switches are dual function. One part of the brake light switch is, of course, to illuminate your brake lights. The other one is to deactivate the cruise control. So if they found a grommet that was bad, see, that would prevent you from turning the brake lights off if the grommet was worn out and bad. Now, if all they did, Stan, was replace the grommet, they may have to go back in there and replace that brake light switch as well. You know, that would, you know, they probably put the grommet in and everything seemed to be working at that time, but for some reason or other, they might be something still wrong with that brake light switch. Now, if a brake light switch, you put it in there and you still got an issue, I'm going to be honest with you, 90% of the problems that we get, especially with that vintage Honda Accord, we've got two of those, the same year model as in our rental fleet at Magic Mechanic. We're our $8.99 a day rental vehicles. And both of them had bad switches. The switches itself, where you activate the cruise control, were bad. And we wound up, the problem that we ran into was they don't make that anymore. And we wound up having to get used switches from salvage yards to repair the cruise control on both of those cars. So, you know, have them, you know, most likely it's probably just a bad brake light switch. That is available. If they question that whatsoever, have them replace it. But if you still have issues, it might be a switch issue. And if it is, like I said, those switches are kind of hard to come by because Honda's not manufacturing them anymore. I don't know if anybody in the aftermarket has came out with one for a replacement yet, but when we ran into the issue with ours at the shop, we wound up I had to wind up hunting them down out of salvage yards in order to be able to get them to repair the vehicle. But yeah, have them double check that brake light switch. And like I said, if that's not the case, tell them to look at the switches. I mean, it's unfortunate, but they do go bad over a period of time. And you know, in an older car like that here in Florida, a lot of that stuff gets sun baked, you know, and the actual, just the heat that's generated inside the vehicle will cause them switches and plastic components to start breaking down. And that's when you run into issues like this. Stan, I appreciate your calling us, and you have a great weekend.
Let's go ahead and let's stay in Orlando, where Adnan's got a question. Go ahead. You're on with Larry Perry.
Hey, and Larry, yes, thanks for taking my call. I have a Honda Accord 2007, and the AC, it blows cold sometimes, and it works fine, and then sometimes it would not come on or just blow hot air. And I can't figure out, you know, what to do.
Okay. Have you had the system checked to see if it was full of refrigerant or not?
Yeah, I had someone put some refrigerant in it. It didn't make a difference.
Okay, it still does the same thing. Do you know, is that the original compressor that's on the car?
I don't know. I bought it used.
Okay. Anad, let me tell you what I usually run into. On a Honda, it's real common that over time, you know, on that AC compressor, you have a clutch that gets magnetized, and that's what engages the compressor to turn. And over a period of time, what will happen, you know, as the compressor clutch wears, it will get to the point to when you turn the AC on, the coil magnetizes, but there is such a distance between the clutch and the pulley that it can't engage the clutch. And, you know, it's just because there's too much of an air gap between the clutch and the actual pulley itself. And then sometimes, depending on how much voltage the coil gets, sometimes they'll magnetize and it'll engage. Sometimes it won't. You know, but what I do when I get one in like that, and, you know, I check and I make sure I've got power going to the compressor itself. You know, make sure that the clutch coil is receiving, you know, 12 volts when the system is turned on. And if it is, what I'll usually do, and this sounds a little bit primitive, but if the clutch isn't turning and there's power at the compressor, a lot of times I'll take something wooden, like a broom handle or something like that, and I'll reach down there while the engine's running, and I'll just barely touch the clutch on the front of the compressor, and it'll usually just take right off and start working like nobody's business. But as soon as you turn it off and go to turn it back on, it's just that air gap between the clutch and the pulley is so great that it can't magnetize and engage it any longer. You know, so I will tell you like this, you know, that when it's not working, you need to have somebody do a voltage test at the compressor itself. If you have 12 volts there and you've got this intermittent problem, the problem is going to be a worn clutch and pulley on the front of the compressor itself. They may not be, you know, physically anything wrong with the compressor. But now, listen, you can usually buy a remanufactured AC compressor for that car just about as cheap as you could go and buy a new clutch pulley, a clutch and pulley assembly for the front of it to replace the worn parts. So kind of keep that in mind. See, when you buy a reman compressor, the clutch and the coil and the pulley is all brand new, and they just rebuild the compressor itself. So it's usually cheaper just to buy the compressor and put another one on it than it is to go and try to fix the one you have, even though the compressor itself's not bad, but the clutch and the pulley and the coil is what your wear items are on that compressor. And I hope that helps you and solves your mystery. It's easy to test. Check for voltage at the coil on the compressor. If it's got 12 volts there and it's not engaging, it's the clutch, pulley, and coil assembly would need to be replaced, or replace the compressor itself. Have a great weekend.
Bob in Castleberry, you're on with Larry. Go ahead.
Hey, Larry, how are you?
I'm doing good.
I need some adult supervision, and I suspect you're the man.
All right, we'll give it a whirl.
All right, I've got a 2010 Honda Accord that I've had a problem with, where the engine light comes on, a VSA light, and then a triangle with a exclamation mark that also comes on. The issue, once the car is started, and it doesn't have a problem starting, but you basically cannot go out of first gear. It just seems like there's a lot of hesitation, and it almost kind of wants to stall if you press on the accelerator. I hate to say this, but I had a mobile mechanic come by in early January, and he, tested, got the error code, changed some parts out. It lasted for about a month, maybe about a total of 1,000 miles. Currently, it has about 155,000 miles on it, and I'm kind of at a loss.
All right. Well, what kind of parts did this mobile mechanic replace on it?
The sensors, a couple of sensors that I'm aware of for sure. Other than that, I really don't have a lot of detail. I hate to say that. I'm not really a car guy.
Yeah. Did he by any chance tell you what sensors he was replacing? I mean, were they oxygen sensors or?
They were right at the top of the engine block that he was replacing. So I'm not sure if that gives you any insight.
Okay. Is this a four-cylinder or is it a V6?
V6.
Okay. Is it a 3.5 V6 motor?
Yes.
Okay. Let me, Bob. I don't know how they can legally do mobile repair. There's a lot of mobile services. I mean, that are legal in Florida. Mobile lubes, mobile tire replacements, mobile battery, mobile detailing and washing. But the actual, I guess they must be some type of a loophole, because in order to do any type of automotive repair, professionally and actually charge for it in the state of Florida, you have to have an MV number from the state, and it has to be attached to a physical address, and you have to have insurance. And for the mobile guys that are running around out here, one of these days I have a funny feeling that law is actually going to be enforced, and there's going to be a lot of people in a little bit of trouble. You got to be careful with this. We'll get to your car problem here in a second, but what happens is, let's just say, for an example, one of these mobile guys come to your house, and which may not be a good idea to start with. And secondly, if they get hurt working on your vehicle, and they don't have, I guarantee you, most of them do not have insurance. They don't have garage liability insurance, because you can't get garage liability for a mobile vehicle. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts there. Somebody gets hurt working on your car, and listen, trust me, people get hurt working on cars. You're going to be the one responsible for it. Somebody gets in there and loses a finger or a hand or something like that, whether they know what they're doing or not, or God forbid, a jack fails and comes down on them or something like that. Mobile mechanics, if it's a neighbor trying to give you a hand, that's one thing. But if you got somebody in there charging you for this, you could really be in a world of hurt. I mean, I've been expert witness in a lot of different issues like this. So all I can do is just kind of forewarn you. Now, to get to your problem here, it sounds like you've got one of two things going on. You have either an electronic throttle body that's not opening up to allow the vehicle to accelerate, or either you've got multiple misfires. And I think it's more along the lines of probably multiple misfiring. And let me explain to you. And folks, listen, if you've got a Honda or a Nissan, or just about any Kias, Hyundais, these are all pretty much made the same nowadays. Now, what winds up happening is the spark plugs in these vehicles they go down into these recessed cavities all the way down into the cylinder heads through the valve covers. Used to, a spark plug would actually go in through a side of a cylinder head. Now they go right through the valve cover down into the cylinder head, so that way the spark is actually centrally located in the combustion chamber. Now, what will happen is, over a period of time, Bob, the valve cover gasket and the part that actually seals that spark plug well will actually start seeping oil into those recessed spark plug cavities. When the motor oil starts filling up these cavities, it builds up not only around the spark plug, but the actual coil that goes over top of the spark plug. And see, from that coil to the spark plug, there's a rubber boot. And what will wind up happening is that oil will saturate that boot, and the next thing you know, you've got spark arcing all over the place down inside that cavity itself. And what normally has to be done is the valve covers have got to be removed off the engine, new valve cover gaskets installed, clean those wells out real good with a like a parts cleaner, and then compressed air. And then in a lot of cases, the new spark plugs, and in a lot of cases, it's a good idea to either replace the insulators, the rubber pieces on the coils, or either replace the coils itself. and that's what's most likely going on with it. It'll cost a little more to fix it and fix it right than the mobile guy did. I have a gut feeling he's went and he's scanned it, and he's probably come up with a code or two for misfires, and either he completely misdiagnosed it, or either he's just went in and maybe replaced one coil or something like that, especially if it was on top of the motor. And even though it had oil on it, he probably didn't give it, a second thought, just slapped another coil in there just to temporarily basically fix your problem so he could charge you and move on to the next victim. But in your case, I have a strong suspicion from what I see, on a daily basis, for that particular car and the vintage and the engine. It's most likely got oil in those spark plug cavities, and a couple valve cover gaskets, and get those cavities cleaned out, maybe a fresh set of plugs, and either insulators or replace the coils, and that'll probably get you back in business. But, regardless, it needs to be scanned, pull the coils out, see if they're saturated with oil, and then a person can actually advise you on exactly what needs to be done. But, I've done this for a long time, and for what you're describing, this is what I would expect. So, Bob, I appreciate your call. I hope that helps you. At least you're guided in the right direction now. And remember what I said about these mobile guys. They could be a blessing, but I'll tell you what, they could also be a curse.
Well, like I said, I needed the adult supervision, and you're the man. Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome, Bob.
Thank you so much, Bob. That opens up a line for you to hop on with Larry Perry himself. 844-580-9326, 844-580 WDBO. We're going to grab a quick break right now. Some weather, some news, some traffic. More of the Magic Mechanic coming right up on WDBO. Hooked on the Magic Mechanic radio show is what we all are every Saturday at 3 o'clock. You're listening to Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic, right here on WDBO. 844-580-9326, 844-580 WDBO. If you got a question about your car, your truck, your jet ski, it's apparently a theme of today's show. You never know what to expect when Larry's working on a project outside of the shop, in the shop. Who knows? He's got all the answers for whatever you may need. Pick up the phone, 844-580-9326, 844-580 WDBO. Just about 45 minutes away from our open mic section of the show. Go ahead and send us some of those, and we will run through them just after the 4:30 news break. Larry, what do you say we head to Kissimmee and talk to Vernon?
Hey, let's go.
Vernon, you're on with Larry Perry.
Vernon, are you with us?
Hello? Yeah. Oh, there he is here. Hello? Here, go ahead and come up to your phone, Larry. I'll turn you down for a second, Vernon, if you want to just jam out to some more Buffalo Springfield. All right, how you doing, Vernon? You there?
Yes, I'm here. Pretty good. Doing pretty good.
Up on, you're on with Larry Perry. What's your question?
All right, I got a 2001 Honda Accord manual transmission. It's got about 360,000 miles. I'm getting a check engine light. It's come up with P1456, some kind of air leak. And I replaced it on fuel cap. I've also gas cap, that is, and also replaced the canister purge valve solenoid and the vapor canister valve. And I'm still getting the light. After about 70 miles, it comes back on.
Okay. Vernon, some of these can be pretty difficult to find, especially when you start getting into a car that age. It's not a good idea to just start replacing stuff because it'll be never ending. There's two things that we do. One is we connect what is called a smoke machine to your vehicle. And what it does is it fills that whole entire evaporative fuel system full of a non-toxic smoke. And so a technician can look underneath the car. He can follow all of the evaporative fuel system lines all the way around the charcoal canister and everything to see if there's any of that non-toxic smoke emitting from either a connection or a broken tube or something along those lines. And sometimes these can be, depending on the code that you have, some of them can be what is considered a gross leak, or some of them can be considered a small leak. And the small ones are extremely difficult to find sometimes. But all this aside, what this is basically telling you when you have those types of codes is that when the vehicle is running and you have fuel actually returning into the tank, that creates pressure. And the ideal thing is that the manufacturers want is to be able to monitor the pressure inside that fuel tank. They actually want somewhere between 1 to 3 pounds of positive pressure in that fuel tank and in that fuel system whenever the vehicle is operating. And then when you shut it off, they want to alleviate that pressure and actually have any of that vapor travel through the charcoal canister system. So therefore, it's not flammable, nor would you smell the fuel fumes. But when you get one that is leaking like this, the first step is to do a smoke test. I mean, that is one of the most common services that we do for diagnostics for these particular issues. Now, like I said, they can be extremely challenging to find out where the leak is actually at. In a lot of cases, what we have to do is actually, sometimes if we can't find it with a smoke machine, we will actually go and administer positive pressure into your fuel system, into the tank and everything. And sometimes it gets to a point where we literally have to go and start spraying soap literally all over the canister and all of the fuel and vapor lines under the vehicle itself until we find out exactly where that is taking place. It's really funny. One of the main issues that we have, and I think we have seen 3 in the last week or so, and the technicians will, get it in the shop, and we'll go ahead and connect a smoke machine to it, and we'll see smoke just rolling out of somewhere underneath the car. Sometimes it's not even visible, and we may have to remove panels and some other stuff to actually get to it. But what we find is rodents. Rodents get in there and eat this stuff up. They'll sit there and they will literally chew and eat up half of a vapor fuel system line. And I'm sitting there going, what in the world? You would think the gasoline would kind of chase them off, but it doesn't even faze them. But it's rodents, whether it be a squirrel, a rat, a mouse, I have no idea. But they eat this stuff up alive. And that's the reason I'm saying you could replace the things that are common, like the pressure solenoid, the vapor canister. You could replace all that stuff. But if a daggone rodent has gotten up underneath the car and chewed these vapor lines in two, none of that stuff's going to fix it. So either a smoke test in order to identify exactly where that leak is, or either, in some cases do a positive pressure test and soap the system down in order to find out. When you find your bubbles, of course, you find your leak. But you would be surprised what we run into. We get cars into the shop, literally, that are so eaten up. I mean, stuff that's 1 and 2 years old, eaten up so bad, wiring harness-wise, that, insurance companies will have to pay us and supply a whole brand new wiring harness for the vehicle because it's just eaten up so bad, and in so many places it's just not feasible to repair it. And we've had I think 3 in the last week or so where the technicians will come up to me and they'll show me these vapor lines that are literally just riddled with rodent teeth. You can see where they've just chewed into it and kept right on eating. But you'd think gasoline fumes would kind of shoo them away, but it doesn't seem to faze them at all, So I've never tried it. Have you, Josh?
I haven't, no.
Chewed on a gasoline vapor line? Well,
no, I didn't seek that out even in my crazy college days, no.
Hey, Vernon, listen, get a smoke test done on that thing and see what's going on. If they can't find it, tell them to put some positive pressure on that system and spray the soapy water down all over it. They'll find the leak in it. I wish you luck, and I appreciate you hanging on to talk to us. And, folks, with that being said, we're going to be coming up here on the second hour, and we have a lot of open lines. So if you'd like to hop on board and get your question in, I guarantee you we'll get to it. 844-580 WDBO. We'll see you on the other side of 4 o'clock.
Here on WDBO, my name is Josh McCarthy, pushing the buttons here for the radio station 107.3 FM, AM 580, and always streaming live in your WDBO app. If you send us an open mic right there in that very same WDBO app, we are about 30 minutes away from answering those questions live on the air. If you want to hop on with Larry right now, we got some open lines for you. 844-580-9326, 844-580 WDBO, or if you want to call Larry's shop right away, the number is 407-629-2661. That'll put you on with JD, or you can leave a message and he will call you back as soon as he can. Again, that number is 407-629-2661. Larry, what do you think JD is doing right this very second?
I don't know if he would be fishing or not. The reason for it being is it is awful windy. And I think that would probably, but he's probably a diehard, so he might be fishing anyway. But, if you get into a leeward area where it's on the other side of a, sometimes you can find some flat water anywhere. So, if you're diehard, I'm sure you still be bass fishing. Hey, folks, welcome to the second hour of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. It's a show where you call in, you ask your automotive questions, and you can't beat the price because it's absolutely free. Anybody out there got a car question, an oil question, especially synthetic oil questions, and you want to know a little more about that, number is 844-580-9326. I always tell folks the easiest way to remember is 844 and the station you're listening to, which is 580 WDBO. Folks, we do have wide open lines, so the next one that calls in is going to be the next one up. So go ahead and give us a ring, and Josh will go ahead and get your information and get you lined up. Also, remember, we take your automotive questions and my comments, and we place them on our new YouTube channel so other folks can maybe find the same help that you seek. Do you know we average 1,000 views on the Magic Mechanic YouTube channel a day? 1,000 views a day of people going in there and looking and hunting for automotive information. So we hope that this helps a lot of folks. It's really been neat, especially the comments. It's most people are very favorable of us continuing to do it. So, it's things that I see along the way, and just try to share what I can with you folks to help keep some of these crazy car problems at bay. And remember, so all your YouTube, all your car questions are being indexed. We put them on the YouTube channel so other folks can find them. Plus, you can play them back anytime you want. You can go in and put, Magic Mechanic YouTube, and you can off to the side of that you can put Honda engine noise or Hyundai engine noise or Hyundai recall, and if that's what you called in about, and then it's easy for you to find the actual question that you asked on the air. That number again is 844-580-9326. And to speak to JD, the general manager at Magic Mechanic, that number is 407-629-2661. Folks, our sponsors are very important to the show. We all pitch in to bring you the program every week. So if you enjoy it, please patronize our sponsors and tell them you heard about them here on the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. Orlando Auto Upholstery, interior convertible tops, carpet seats, door panels, headliners, anything that has to do with the interior or top of your vehicle. Orlando Auto Upholstery is an awesome place to get these types of repairs made. These are artisan trades nowadays. Not very many craftsmen like this that still sew and reproduce original equipment, interiors and seats and leather. it's astonishing, to me that there's people out there that are still capable of doing this. When I got into the industry many, many years ago, I can rebuild a wrecked car. I'm probably one of the best automotive painters I've ever ran across. Body work, frame straightening, that sort of thing, engine building transmissions, anything mechanically, I have done it. The one thing that I personally never ever got into or wanted to get into was the upholstery business. I said, number one, my hands are never clean enough to do it. So, therefore, we rely on Orlando Auto Upholstery for all of our interior and top needs. Yeah, you can visit them at orlandoautoupholstery.com. Amsoil synthetic lubricants for your car, truck, van, SUV, boat, motorcycle, tractor, bulldozer, lawn equipment, you name it, Amsoil makes a lubricant for it. Folks, if you've got a vehicle, you want to keep it a long time, and you want to do it without having to eventually replace an engine or transmission, you've got to use an oil that is going to prevent wear. If not, if you use just whatever you're buying at the parts store, the graph just continually keeps falling. The oil itself is made to try to get you from one oil change to the next. It's not made to preserve the engine. And that's what Amsoil does. Not only can it withstand temperatures up to 450 degrees, but it runs to heat and friction as opposed to getting hot and thin and running away from it. See, that's where your engine encounters the wear part. If you've got an oil in there that can prevent that from happening, you just about got it whipped. Amsoil takes it a step further. They use another synthetic additive called ester. The ester in a polyalpha olefin synthetic, which is by definition a true synthetic oil, and Amsoil is about the last that still uses a polyalpha olefin base stock, which is by far the best. And anybody that flies a jet aircraft will tell you the same thing, because that's what they're lubricated with as well. That you've literally got a fountain of youth in a bottle is what it winds up being. So if you got a new car after break-in, consider switching it over to Amsoil. If you buy a vehicle, so let's say it's got 125,000 mile on a used one, you don't know anything about it. If it runs and drives out great right now, use the Amsoil. You're going to prevent any future wear. We know it's got some wear accumulated unless they've used Amsoil, but if they haven't, at least you can prevent further wear. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a preservative for your engine and your transmission, differentials, transfer cases in your four-wheel drive trucks. It is a modern miracle of lubrication. If you want to find out more, you can go to amsoil.com, and you can look up what the viscosity recommendations are for your vehicle and read up on how Amsoil actually came to be. It's a very impressive story. Jasper engines and transmissions. If you need a motor or transmission, say you got a fleet vehicle, something along those lines, it's cheaper to repower it than it is to replace it. But you want to make it count. You throw some Johnny-come-lately used, or hope it's a good engine from a remanufacturer. Folks, it's kind of luck of the draw. When it comes to a Jasper, they come with 100,000 mile nationwide warranty. That's parts and labor. So you're not taking any chances whatsoever. And they don't just rebuild this equipment. Let's say if it's a transmission and it's a problem transmission, they re-engineer it to where there is no further problems with that same type of circuit, valve body, lubricant passage, whatever. It's been redesigned. So that's why they can go and give you a 100,000 mile warranty on these components once they're sold and installed into your vehicle. And when we install Jasper engines and transmissions, and folks, we install hundreds of Jasper engines and transmissions, our customers are elated with it because they've got the best product that money can buy to repower a vehicle with. But we actually price them up with a whole install kit. It comes with all the hoses, the motor mounts, all the tune-up stuff. I mean, literally, it even comes with the filters, for goodness sakes. All the belts. I mean, so you can get it instead of somebody calling you back every 15 minutes saying, well, you need this while we got it out, or you need that. It all comes in a box. So we get the install kit, and you can get the price of the install kit and the engine and the labor, and you know exactly what you're spending out the door. So somebody's not going to call you back and drive you crazy, dollaring you to death. You know what you're dealing with when you get into it. To find out more, you can go to JasperEngines.com. And, of course, the Magic Mechanic Auto Service Center located in Orlando, Florida. Engines, transmissions, brakes, suspension, steering, electrical repairs, and, of course, AMSOIL synthetic lubricants. Visit us at magicmechanic.com. Email me directly, Larry@magicmechanic.com. And don't forget, we currently have 15 $8.99 a day in-shop rental vehicles. If you've got a vehicle that needs service or repairs of any sort like that, or anything that you know is going to be a few days to get it done, you can call ahead of time and you can reserve one of the $8.99 a day rental vehicles. And as soon as it's available and ready to go, JD give you a call. You come in, you pick up the rental, drop yours off, the repairs are done, and you just keep right on driving for $8.99 a day. So if you can beat that, let me know. All right, with that being said, we're going to run on out to Apopka and talk to Eugene. And folks, that is opening up lines for you at 844-580-WDBO. Go ahead and hop on board and you'll be the second up. Eugene, what's going on?
Hey, Larry. Through some long story short, I've inherited the maintenance on an Audi Q5 for a family member. 2015, it's the 2-liter, and it burns about a quart of oil every 400 miles or so. And I've done a little bit of research on it. Apparently, there was a recall prior to that year. But I'm just looking for any suggestions on milking this thing along for a little bit longer so she can get out of it and get into something else.
Yeah, well, Eugene, that's a turbo, right?
It is a turbo, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would probably be the first thing that I would look at. A turbo for that car probably isn't going to break the bank. Let me tell you what I would suggest doing. I would pull the hoses off at the intercooler itself. That's where that turbo air pressure is actually going into it goes through the intercooler to cool the air charge down before it re-enters the engine. Now, what we would look for is we'd pull those hoses off of it, and I mean, if there's oil in this thing, that means the turbo itself is failing. The actual seals in it are starting to leak, and it's allowing engine oil to start coming out of the turbo unit. And what happens is it actually gets reintroduced right into the intake through the throttle body, and so it's going to burn with the air and the fuel mixture. Now if that system is dry and there's no oil in the intercooler, then there's probably an internal engine problem. But if it's just a turbo, Eugene, you can't junk a car or condemn it for just a bad turbo, especially one that's been in service for a while. We've got a pretty good line on turbochargers for Audis and Mercedes and BMWs. I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and tell you they're running down the street trying to give them away, but it's not that big of a deal. It's something that's a commonly replaced part nowadays for exactly what you are describing. So we get Volkswagens in the shop all the time with that same exact engine doing exactly what yours is doing. And if I'm not mistaken, and I'll just throw this out there at you just so you can get an idea, on those 2 liters with the turbos, and that's a universal engine. Not only does Audi use it, Volkswagen uses it, so it's a commonly used engine for your European, your German, ancestry cars. But, usually a turbo system, a new turbo, some of them will actually come, on that one, I think it comes with the entire exhaust manifold and the wastegate and the whole 9 yards. But installed, the last one we did, I think was about $2,400. You know, and that's for the whole brand new. That even included the new oil supply line and everything else on it. So don't junk the car, or you know, you try to sell it the way it is, you won't wind up with nothing but a big problem. You know, even if you're thinking about just dumping it. I mean, I guess you could always trade it in and get whatever you can get out of it, but you know, it still may be worth fixing and getting some more miles out of. I'd encourage you to at least, you know, maybe you deal with somebody, but if you don't, I mean, let us at least pull those lines off the intercooler and see if they're full of oil. If they are, then we know what needs to be done. It's going to need a turbo. And, you know, shoot, you might do that and put some AMSOIL in the daggone thing and get another 100,000+ mile out of the car, you know. So if it's something that you all just inherited, I wouldn't write it off just yet. Those are good engines. They're not real well known and common for going through large amounts of oil. Usually it's the turbo that's going to cause that problem. With that being said, I guess we're going to break here for the three big things. Eugene, thank you so much for the call. And if we can help you, you let us know. Yeah, we've been at it for, well, probably going on a year now. So all the calls and questions we get here on the program gets indexed and placed on it. Real quick, before we get to the bottom of the hour news here, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, most folks, you know, years ago had vehicles that had timing belts, you know, and that was something that usually had to be replaced on some vehicles as early as 30,000 mile, and in most cases over time they were winding up being replaced every 100,000 mile. Well, you know, as times went on, most of these engines have actually went to timing chains. And, you know, usually timing chains on most engines, on most vehicles, will last around 100 to 150,000 mile. Some of them will just about last as long as the engine does. But the reason I'm bringing this up is there's one car manufacturer that still uses timing belts on one of their most common popular engines, and that's Honda. You know, a lot of folks don't realize this that owns these vehicles, but when you start talking about Honda, and it's from 1995 all the way to pretty much current date, the Honda Odysseys, the Honda Pilots, and a lot of your Accords and the Ridgelines that use the 3.5 liter motor, you know, which is still the most common engine I think they use, those all use timing belts. And so many folks don't know that they've got to do a timing belt replacement on these vehicles every 100,000 mile. If they don't, they wind up breaking a timing belt and ruining the engine. So, you know, if you've got a Honda with a 3.5 engine in it, folks, you really need to do your research and find out, because if you've got one with 120,000 mile on it, that thing, you can't trust it to drive it to Publix and back. That timing belt's liable to break and leave you stranded. Not only that, but you're liable to ruin your engine if it breaks. So, you know, I kind of wanted to, I need to mention this more often, because that's one that you know, they're such a good vehicle, and if you don't know you got a timing belt on that thing, then you're going to wind up losing an engine on account of it. So if you're unsure, email me, Larry@magicmechanic.com, and we'll make sure that you've got the right information and hopefully prevent you from having a major
844-580-9326, 844-580 WDBO to talk to Larry right now for the price of free $99, or call his shop if you want to get right to work. 407-629-6. So I'm going to start over now. 407-629-2661. One more for the person who didn't miss up the first time. 407-629-2661. We like to dedicate one segment every episode, every Saturday afternoon, to go through some open mics. How does that sound, Larry?
Let's go to work.
All right, here we go. This comes to us. Oh, that is the music. Let me go ahead and turn down the music. Here we go, and let me pull up the open mics. Coming at you in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, Larry, could you give a brief description or for the three lines of AMSOIL oil, and just a brief difference between the three and what makes Signature Series the Cadillac of the three? Thanks.
Well, yeah, AMSOIL does have some downline oils. They have their XL series and they have their OE series. which these oils are, the OE series is made to meet the car manufacturer's suggested change intervals. In other words, they are not extended drain oils. So, if let's say if your car manufacturer recommends to change the oil every 5,000 mile, then you would do the same with the OE series oils. XL, most of those are recommended to change every 7,500 miles. And of course, your signature series is the Cadillac of oils. There's not really anything that I know of currently available anywhere that will compete with the signature series line of AMSOIL products. Those oils are made for extended drain intervals. AMSOIL itself will even tell you to run them 25,000 mile between changes. Me, I don't care if you do that. That's fine and dandy. But I would want the oil sent out for analysis at least halfway through just to make sure it is suitable for continued use. The reason for that being is, and the reason I have that kind of a stand with it, is for the simple fact you can't just automatically assume oil is going to be good. Now, the oil, you can't kill the oil. You can't. AMSOIL is probably good indefinitely. That's how the oil is made. You got to remember the same signature series oil that we're using is a byproduct basically of what they generally lubricate jet turbine engines with. So it's an incredible oil. And you know, in an automotive application, it's kind of silly. Even engineers will, chemical engineers will tell you, you don't need to run something that good in an internal combustion engine, unless you want the engine to last forever, basically, is what they're pretty much telling you. But it is an incredible oil, but running into extended drain intervals, I'm a mechanic, I look at it from another end as the chemist does. The thing is, if you've got a fuel control problem, let's say you get fuel contamination in your engine oil, most of it will evaporate out, but in some cases it may not. And unless you send the oil out for an analysis and make sure that oil isn't contaminated with something, glycol from coolant or fuel, then you don't know, And of course, when somebody has a problem, first thing they're going to blame it on is the oil, of course. Even if it was contaminated with something. So that's the reason I say, even your over-the-road semis and stuff like that, you've got to look at it like this. So many of them only change oil when the analysis comes back and says it's time to change the oil, because you're not going to change, 16 gallons of oil every 3,000 mile. You're going to try to get as much service life out of that oil as you possibly can. That's the reason your trucking companies, they send all their oils out for analysis and lets the analysis companies tell them when service is due on that engine. And we're talking Detroit and Cummins, Caterpillar, all these, big diesel engines. So oil analysis is very, very important. And AMSOIL, like I said, they tell you to use the oil for 25,000 mile or once a year, and and they warranty your engine against lubrication failure. So they don't have very many engine failures. Let's just put it that way. But it is an incredible product, and I primarily only stock and sell the Signature Series. Second best in any category is that's not what me or Magic Mechanic has ever been about. I want to deal with customers that want to keep their cars in pristine condition and get the maximum life out of them. And I wholeheartedly believe that AMSOIL is the only way that I know of to do it. I look at it like this. If a customer keeps their car 200,000 and 300,000 mile and it keeps running great, shoot, that's the cars that the grandkids get, and we still keep working on them. So you got to look at it like this. I said, you may never buy a motor or transmission as long as I'm maintaining your car, but you got to look at it like this. You're going to have other issues, electric power windows. You're going to have belts and hoses and an occasional tune-up and things of that nature. I said, but as long as you're not buying motors and transmissions, folks want to keep the vehicles, and that's why I think AMSOIL is such an important part of our business. And it has built so much customer loyalty just because this has been proven over and over and over. That's why I swear by AMSOIL products. It is an incredible company, and they have built some impenetrable lubricants over since '72. So that's pretty much it as far as the differences in those oils. Some are made, the Signature Series is made to, you can beat that oil to death just about as long as you want. I recommend 15,000 mile or once a year. So the other ones, you do not run them that long. They're not made for that type of an extended drain interval. So I hope that answers your question. I appreciate your open mic.
Thank you so much, Larry. Open mic number 2 comes to us right now.
This is Mike in Port St. John. I just changed my oil to AMSOIL 5W30 Signature Series at 113,000 miles with a Wix XP filter. Can I go 15,000 miles with no issues? Thank you.
Yes, Mike, but this is the one thing that I want you to do. When you change to AMSOIL on a higher mileage motor, let's say something over 100,000 mile, and that seems to be the magic mark when somebody buys a used car or something like that, it'll have 100K plus on it. You don't know, something's been in there other than AMSOIL. When you put AMSOIL in, it's going to do two things. It's going to eliminate friction, and it's going to clean like nobody's business. Trying to clean up anything that a prior oil has left behind. With that being said, what you need to do is, let's say you want to go the 15,000 mile. Let's do this. Pull the dipstick out at 7,500. Now, I know this is an expensive cleanup change, but if that oil is as black as tar, listen, it might be in your best interest to change it early that first time. You got to remember, that oil is cleaning, and all this stuff that it's cleaning has got to go somewhere. Where's it going to go? It's going to go to your oil filter. And you got to remember, an oil filter can only hold so much. And unfortunately, no matter what oil filter you use, if it goes into bypass, it does not send you a notice in the mail, and the engine doesn't know any different, see, because it's not going to affect your oil pressure because the oil filter is running in bypass. So that's the reason I say, if the oil is just starting to turn a little amber or whatever at 7,500 mile, by all means, go ahead and put another 7,500 mile on it, But if the oil is extremely, extremely black and dirty, on the dipstick, my advice would be to change it early the first time, especially if the engine has over 100,000 mile on it, and either who knows what oil, or either it's used as semi-synthetic, or, one of the downline wannabe synthetics, because they do leave quite a bit of debris behind. Follow that recommendation, and I think you'll be fine.
All righty, open mic number 3 coming at you right about now.
Hey, Larry. Jay from Orlando, and I enjoy the show very much. I would like for you to comment on these major manufacturers pushing the electric vehicles, and it seems like they are not pushing the charging stations across the rural America and the interstates. If I could, I'd like for you to comment on that and see if they're doing enough about that. Thank you very much.
Let me see, how can I say this? I don't want to make anybody mad. But listen, if you've got an electric vehicle, if you want an electric vehicle, and you are literally driving, to work and back, and it's within your charge on the car, you might be okay. But listen, if you take an electric vehicle out of town or something to where you've got to drive any distance, and you go to one of these charging stations, a lot of people don't realize they charge you for this. And if you're on a major highway and you go into a service plaza, the average cost is about, 30, 40, somewhere between $30 and $40 for a quick charge. It's going to get you another 80 miles. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, this is crazy. Who would do that? I mean, and then have the inconvenience of, if you're somewhere off the beaten path, like you just said, having to find a charging station. Get up in Umatilla, Florida, and try to find you a charging station, up there in farm country, and see how many they are at the local Quick Mart. I'm just telling you, this is if if you're going to be using that charge and charging it only at your house, it makes a lot of sense, you know. But if you're going to drive a car out of the town or something like that, there's no way I would go through that, you know. And I guess, you know, they'll keep adding charging stations and stuff, but I'll tell you what it's going to do. It is going, you know, you got the government with their war on oil trying to force car manufacturers into building electric cars, so at least they got something to sell that they're not going to be ridiculed over. And what's going to wind up happening is so let's just say, for an example, they're going to start producing less gas cars, okay? You got California crazies out there holding up a crucifix, you know, no gas cars after a certain date and this sort of thing. Well, what it's going to wind up doing is it's going to put so much pressure on folks wanting to keep their gas cars that we're going to have problems getting all the parts that we need to keep these cars on the road. I mean, something's going to give sooner or later. And the thing is, now you've got the biggest shortage of automotive technicians, good ones, that I have ever seen in my whole entire life. I mean, this is going to become a very, very interesting situation. The parts issue, the technician issue, and then you got people out there that are not going to be, they're not going to go quietly into this good night and hand over the keys to their gas-powered pickup trucks, especially the ones that work them for a living, and they don't have the luxury of going and plugging the darn things in anywhere they want. You know, but like I said, if you got 3 miles, you know, a little ways from your house, you go to the grocery store and you work real close to home, and you can come back and you can plug it in, and life is good, and you don't have to hunt down a charging station. That's fine. But if you take one of these vehicles out on the road, listen, it will probably cost you more to charge these vehicles up as you need to charge them than it would be to put gasoline in a gas-powered car. Not even counting the lack of charging stations. You know, you get out into the right place, there's no charging stations. Go to Umatilla or somewhere, you know, some rural area here in Central Florida, let alone some of these places in through Kentucky and West Virginia. You know, pull into your local bank in Huntington, West Virginia, and start looking for a charging station. They're going to laugh at you. So, you know, this stuff the electric car thing is still in its infancy. We see a lot of it here in Central Florida. But as time goes on, well, you know, I think there's going to be a major, major, major demand for repair on gas-powered cars because people are not going to let go of these things. If they do buy an electric, they're still going to keep a gas-powered car just so if they got to drive to Tampa and back without having to worry about charging the darn thing. So, well, that's kind of my take on it, for what it's worth. I just hope everybody's got transportation and can get to where they want to go and back safely.
580-9326, or better yet, as the show comes to a close, you may want to write down his shop number. Larry's shop, of course, is 407-629-2661. That's 407-629-2661. Chris is calling from the UCF area. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, good afternoon. My question has to do with a 09 Grand Marquis that I've got about 220,000 miles on, and what parts maybe should I go ahead and be looking for and stockpiling just to keep the car, because there's no sense and nobody will give me anything for it, and it runs like a top, and you know, I've done all the service over the years and kept it in really good shape. So do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, you know, Chris, a lot of the things that would come into play, you know, I've got fleet companies that are out here right now wanting me to literally sign huge contracts to repower, in some cases, hundreds of vehicles. Service companies, because they see what's coming and they know that they can't do without their gas-powered vehicles. And going by a new one right now is just so ridiculous that, I mean, I don't even know how we're even going to be able to fill the demand for this. But in your case, you know, what I would tell you is if you really want to keep the vehicle, that 4.6 motor will last you a long, long time, as you already know. But the one thing is that the timing chain in that engine is something that you might want to consider getting professionally done. I don't know if it's a job that you could handle yourself or not. But the timing chain in that engine is kind of the weak link. That's what is eventually going to wind up giving you issues. Water pump, belts, hoses, that sort of thing, and tune-up components. Those might be some things that you want to maybe kind of stockpiling for a rainy day, so to speak, if the parts become unavailable down the road. But right now, for that car, I think you're in pretty good shape. Folks, thanks for tuning in. You listeners, customers, show sponsors are the reason to do the show and have a job. You can tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time in Central Florida, 107.3 FM, HD Radio, 96.52, and AM 580 worldwide at WDBO.com. And click Listen Live or just tell your smart speaker to play WDBO Radio every Saturday at 3 p.m. If you need help with your vehicle, you can always call Magic Mechanic at 407-629-2661. Visit our website, magicmechanic.com. Or you can also email car questions directly to me, Larry, at magicmechanic.com. And don't forget to check out Magic Mechanic YouTube and make sure you hit the subscribe button. Until next week, everybody be safe. We'll see you back here next Saturday at 3 p.m.